All right, so what is going on, guys? Coach Joe here with my only Canadian friend, which is crazy. I only have one friend, and he happens to be Mark Novak, which is pretty cool. So trying to start this kind of like podcast deal, video call thing, and I just want to get him on. But just background on Mark, if you don't know who he is, I found him through watching Elliott Hulse videos, which is probably arguably one of the biggest YouTubers on the planet. And he was an intern there. Did you actually work at some point for him, or were you just an intern?
Yeah, I worked there for 2 years after my internship.
So he was officially on the coaching staff for the strength camp. And we've just been, keeping in touch, kicking it off. He's also a Olympic weightlifter. That's kind of what you were known for, I would say, with like the videos and stuff. So we have that in common. But we're just going to dive into it. I'm really excited about this. And so get your coffee and your seafoam mug. It's actually your grandma's mug. Oh, look at that.
I have tea.
He's got tea. It's got flowers though. I'm even more excited. All right. So first question, I was like diving into the background, right? So before interning and that whole deal, like what were you doing? Kind of what were you involved with? Sports or lifting? Did you go to school? Did you go to college? Like just lay it on me. Tell me what's going on.
From the very first day of my life onwards. Yeah, I had a kind of an interesting or not very interesting, depending on your perspective, journey into fitness because I played sports growing up, hockey, cross country, soccer, all that kind of stuff, but I never really trained. For hockey, I played goalie, so if we ever did any kind of dry land training, they'd call it, we would just like stretch a little bit and then they'd throw tennis balls at us and we'd try and catch them. So it was only in university that I started weightlifting or weight training, and that consisted of going to the gym, I still remember the routine me and my friend would do. We'd do the lateral raises, we'd do front raises, we'd do bench press, and then we would do abs. And that would be our routine, like 3 or 4 times a week. So I was doing that for a while. I was too scared to go in the squat rack at that point because the guys squatting they were all on the rowing team, I think. And if you've ever seen a rower, they're usually like 6'5", 250 pounds. They're just massive people. So we avoided that area and just focused on the important muscles, the shoulders, the chest, and the abs. So I did that for a while. And then once I graduated, what I wanted to do, I guess, was become a teacher. But around my 3rd or 4th year of university, I decided I didn't want to teach kids in a school. It just seemed miserable. So I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was just kind of lost. So what did I do? I went to work for my friend's parents' company, which is a security door company, which is a great place to work if you like sitting at a desk all day and working on a computer. So I did that for around a year, and it was during that time that I'd say was one of my lowest points in the sense that I had no direction. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't really know what I liked. And it was luckily at that time I had a good friend who's still a good friend of mine, Jason, who he just said to me, we played pickup hockey once in a while with this group of guys, and he was there, and he said, hey, I'm doing a triathlon. You should do it with me. And I said, I wasn't doing anything at the time, so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. So he sent me a 2-page Word document kind of outlining how you should train roughly for a triathlon. So I started doing that, and I started doing it every single day. So I would ride my bike to work, which would take like an hour and a half. I would ride it home and then run and then go swimming, and I was doing all kinds of stuff like that. I just became obsessed with it. And then around that time as well, my cousin Aaron said to me, hey, have you heard of CrossFit before? And I was just like, not really. And he was like, you should check it out. I know you don't like going to normal gyms. And I was like, yeah, I hate gyms, which is kind of ironic. But he's like, yeah, you should check it out. So I was like, okay. So then I went to a CrossFit gym after emailing the guy Pete, and he hooked me up and did an assessment and got me into the classes. So I started deadlifting, squatting, bench pressing, all that kind of good stuff. And I honestly think that those two experiences of training for and competing in triathlons and then starting CrossFit and just seeing the impact it had on me physically in terms of how strong I was, how fast I was, how I looked, and then mentally, like, it made me feel confident and like I had a direction and I was making progress. So that definitely, people say it all the time, like training saved my life. But for me, I wouldn't say it necessarily saved my life, like I wouldn't be dead right now, but it definitely changed my life dramatically. So those two experiences with Jason and Aaron definitely shaped, and then all the people I met subsequently definitely shaped my my journey into training, which started when I was around 22, so fairly late, I would say. And then I could go even further into the future, but I don't know. You have more questions, or should I?
No, that's crazy. I would say from there, like at that point, now that you were training, right? Was that when you started kind of getting on YouTube and maybe doing some more research yourself on like learning how to train? You know, like
Yes.
Was that what you were doing?
Definitely, yeah. I've always been the kind of person who I want feedback and I want people to tell me if I'm doing something correctly or incorrectly. So when I was at that CrossFit gym, I was always like going over to the coaches and being like, "Hey, like bonehead, you're sitting over there on your phone. Come over here and watch me and tell me if I'm doing this right." And it was the same on YouTube. I was always checking things on YouTube, and I remember the first video I watched for Elliott, I wasn't into it. Like, I just thought he was annoying, and which is kind of funny. But yeah, and then I just slowly got more and more into those videos. And when I started, it's interesting because I'll experience things in my life, and then when someone I listen to can express what those feelings are and give you like references from books and talk about history and philosophy and like all these different things, that really resonates with me. So when I started listening to Elliott's videos, that's what I noticed, was that I was like, hey, I'm feeling all these new things, like I'm feeling more confident and stronger. And then he was basically talking about that transformative process. So over time, I got more and more into his videos.
I think what's funny is like, so when I started watching, I think he had two channels, and I had the kind of same reaction at first. I was like, yo, this guy is nuts. And then he had another one. I remember I was going through like girlfriend problems, and what he was saying was just so out there, but it made like total sense. I was just like, I don't know if I like this channel, but I really like this channel. You know what I mean? But then over time, like you said, it kind of just started like blending and meshing together, you know. But it's just funny because I felt the same exact way. But so on from there, kind of what was your steps forward getting involved with Elliott, and like how the whole intern thing ended up coming about?
Yeah, so after I did a couple triathlons and I was doing CrossFit for a while, someone told me, he's like, hey, you should, actually it was Jason again, that same friend. He's like, hey, you should look into doing training, like training people, because like you're really into it, and because I was reading a lot about it at the time too, so I was getting quite knowledgeable for that time. So he kind of pushed me into getting interested in training. So I did that for 2 years, just at a commercial gym doing personal training. And in that time, I was like, on any of my breaks, I'd be watching Elliott's videos or other people's videos. I don't know if you know 70s Big. Have you heard of 70sbig.com?
Is there a program called 70s Big?
Maybe. I don't know if it's them. They have a website called 70s Big.
Still like a thing though, because I felt like back in the day, I remember this. All right, yeah. Okay, then that's it. Yeah.
It kind of died out, but I'd always be reading their blog posts and stuff like that. So people would always be like asking me about Elliott and stuff like that. They're like, oh, you're always watching his videos. So one day I saw that he had a strength camp clinic coming up, which was, it's basically just like go to strength camp for 2 days, train, meet Elliott and Chris, and just hang out with like-minded people. So I was thinking I need to do that. But whenever I would explain it to someone, like to my parents or to my girlfriend at the time, they'd be like, "What? You're gonna spend like $2,000 to go to Florida and train? Like, do you get a certification?" I'm like, no, probably not. So in my head, I knew it was the right thing to do, but everyone was telling me otherwise. So finally, one day, I'd always have my excuse. Like, I'd get to the landing page where you go to pay for everything.
Yeah, typing your stuff.
I'd be like, I don't have my credit card, so can't do it. But this one day, I said that to myself. I was like, dang, don't have my credit card. And I looked down, and lo and behold, beside my computer was my wallet. So I had to do it. It was fate. So I signed up for it, went down there, and met all the guys. And that was one of the best weekends of my life. I got to meet Elliott and Chris, and actually, there's like 20 people there, so it's hard to talk to Elliott one-on-one when there's 19 other people who want to do the same thing. So, and I'm not really that kind of person who's just going to force a conversation on someone just for the sake of it. So I ended up hanging out with Chris for pretty much the whole time. Like, there'd be a crowd of people, and then Chris and I would just be like standing off to the side, shooting the breeze. And him and I got along really well. He's really genuine, like very down-to-earth guy. And we just got along really well. Like, we're very different, but very much the same. So after that, I just knew in my heart that once again, like, I need to go back there because it just felt very positive. It felt like an environment where whatever idea you had or whatever your passion was, there were people there who would be like, okay, let's make that happen. Like, how can I help you?
That's cool.
And I'd never experienced that before. So I continued personal training, and then I was just kind of email or Facebook messaging Chris once in a while being like, hey, do you guys need interns? Hey, you want someone to come down there? And over time, I kind of just, I think, wore them down. And then they did get some interns, but I got a forest firefighting job that was starting like the same time they were accepting that first wave of interns, so I couldn't do it. But then the next time an opening for an intern rolled around, I was just in pretty consistent contact with them, so it just worked out that I was able to go down there. So being able to meet them, I think, really helped with that, and then also just messaging them and staying in contact helped too.
Right on. So I would say, kind of backtracking a little bit, but it'll all come full circle, is what was your experience like with commercial gyms compared to, I'd say, like a strength camp? Like why were you happy or weren't you happy? And like, what was the difference with that? Because I kind of did the same thing, but in my mind, after doing it for like 2 years, I just knew in my heart like this was not what I was supposed to be doing, even though it's still the same industry. But like kind of the people and everything like that, and that's why I branched off.
Yeah, I'd say my experience in a commercial gym was overwhelmingly positive. There's definitely negatives you can find working in an atmosphere like that, where a lot of it is based on sales and making money and all that kind of stuff, which isn't inherently bad. But yeah, I definitely had a great experience. It was really, really good for me as a young trainer to work in that environment, especially I was at a very busy location, so there was always new clients available, and I got to work with like 60, 70-year-olds. I got to work with younger people, and then everyone in between. And what's great about most commercial gyms is the people you're getting to work with have a wide variety of problems. Most of them aren't people who were athletes growing up. They've sat at desks for a long time. They don't have great movement patterns. So you learn really quickly how to properly regress exercises, how to get people to stretch, how to implement corrective exercises and stretching. And it really provided with me like a fountain of knowledge at that time. But yeah, just in terms of like the hours and the environment, like it wasn't really my favorite place to be. It's just very sterile, and there's no room to move, you know?
Yeah, and then for those that don't know, because you mentioned the firefighting thing, so like,
Yep.
So is that kind of, you were doing that on the side at the time, or that was like a goal of yours was to be a firefighter?
Yeah, so I had another friend, Cam, who had done forest firefighting for a number of seasons throughout university, and I I'd always wanted to do it. I just never had the funds to pay for all the training or just the time to do it. So when I was training, I just remember listening to this Joe Rogan video, and he was just saying like the most powerful lesson that he had learned was to just write down your goals, write down things you want. So I remember hearing that, and I was like, I've always wanted to do this forest firefighting thing, but it's kind of like never happened. So I had this whiteboard, and I wrote down all my goals on it, and one of them was to do forest firefighting. So, and the other one was to intern with Elliott and Chris, which they weren't even offering at that time. But yeah, so I would say it was kind of something I always wanted to do, but it was kind of also just like an experiment to see if Joe Rogan's theories would actually work, and it worked.
Yeah, I have a vision board. I think maybe I probably got it from like one of Elliott's videos actually, but I've literally either obtained or done every single thing on that board besides go to strength camp. Isn't that funny?
Ooh.
Yeah, like everything, like it's crazy, man. And that's like the one thing. And I remember there's like a picture of Elliott, and he's just like freaking out or whatever, and I just screenshotted it, and like that's like kind of on the middle. So I feel like I don't know, 2018 is looking prosperous for knocking that one off the board.
Yeah, I think there's something about having your goals written down and in a place where you can see them every day that makes it just subliminally pushes you in that direction every single day. So the fact that I had to become a forest firefighter in my room every single day, it meant that like I would go and sign up for the course. And then once I did that, I just always, it makes you feel like you're going to attain that goal. So you act as if you're going to. So I just have an interesting story about that actually. When I went to do it, it was really late in the hiring season. So most of the hiring gets done around now actually in February. My brother does forest firefighting. He just got his recall letter. But I did all my courses in like March. Okay. So when I was ready to get hired, it was around April. So when I was talking to people in the class I was with, they were kind of like, yeah, we won't get hired this year, but we'll probably get on next year, hopefully. And in my head, I was like, I need to get on this year. Like that's the only way that I'm going to be able to like get out of training and do all this stuff. So when I got out, the way you get hired is you just call the bases in Ontario, which is the province I'm from.
Okay.
And you just call them up and say, hey, are you guys hiring? And they'll say, nope. And then you say, please, and they say, nope, and then you call the next one. So there's like 30 bases. So I would call pretty much every base at least twice a week, and I did that for like 3 weeks to the point where people were like not answering my calls or just like hanging up on me until like finally one day I got a call from a guy, and he was like, hey, I'm calling from Cochrane, and we just had a guy drop out. And you seem pretty persistent, so like we decided to give you the job. And I was like, oh, like no interview or anything? He's like, no, like you sound like you really want this, so we're gonna give it to you. And for me, that was a really mind-opening event in my life, because it made me realize like you can write something down you want, and then if you act as if you're gonna get that thing, it's gonna happen. Mm-hmm. So yeah. I love that advice. The vision board or just writing things down.
Joe Rogan, man. Change your mind. All right, so speeding forward now, tell me about the internship, kind of like you got accepted and then getting there, what it was like, kind of just a day in the life of being an intern, what kind of things they had you do, and just kind of go from there.
Sure. Yeah, that was really exciting as well, being able to go down there. It was a 3-month internship, which is a long time. But when I got down there, literally the first week or second week after I got there, we moved from Strength Camp's second location, which you probably have seen in all the old Elliott videos. Mm-hmm. And then we moved into the big location.
Okay, yep.
So we did that, and we moved over there with maybe 1, 2, 3... like 4 or 5 members, maybe more than that, but it was just like not very many people at all. And I remember sitting down for a meeting with Elliott and Chris the first day I got in. We just kind of had an introduction meeting, and they asked me what my expectations were. And at the time I just said, I don't have any expectations. Like I'm here to be able to like help you guys and give as much as I can, but I'm not really expecting anything. But looking back now, I think in the back of my mind, I just wanted to, what my expectation was to see how a gym is run and then see how an online business is also run as well. So in the end, I definitely got to see that, because we grew from like definitely under 10 members to whatever they're at now, like over 100 at least. So being able to be a part of that, from like putting all the equipment into the gym, painting the walls, putting down the turf, setting up all the standard operating procedures and systems, cleaning bathrooms, or maybe not cleaning bathrooms enough if you ask Elliott. And it didn't feel like I was an intern, because it was only myself, Shannon, Chris running the gym. Elliott was kind of doing his own thing in his office. He was there once a week, but it was really us three, and we were kind of all equal parts of that. So I got to write a lot of the standard operating procedures. We created the Strength Camp system, which kind of had a framework already, but we fleshed it out. So yeah, there was a lot of responsibilities from like, you have your own gym. So there's like little crappy jobs you have to do, and then there's also fun, cool jobs you have to do, and everything in between. So
you do it all, man.
Yeah, so I got to be a part of that, which was definitely a blessing.
That's cool. It's kind of funny too. Like, I have people who offer to for like a membership to clean the gym and stuff, and although it sounds nice, like I don't actually even want them to do that. Like, I enjoy doing, like the cleaning of the, like, it's so weird because you think it'd be backwards. You're like, oh no, get someone in here to do it. But I don't know, man. Like, once you kind of have something that's your own, and you probably know, like as an intern, you like take pride in, you probably walk in there today and be like, like that toilet. No, but that's cool. So I would say, so at that point, were you closer with like Chris then? Like, was Chris kind of like a big mentor for you there, because Elliott wasn't there as much?
Yeah, definitely. Chris was there every day. We'd have like a morning meeting every morning, and you just go for lunch and hang out with that person or the people you're there with, like Shannon, Chris, and Danny. So yeah, definitely Chris was a big mentor, and I learned a lot from him, just in terms of like the type of person he is, the way he works, and the way he treats other people. So yeah, Chris was definitely a big mentor and a big influence on me when I was down there.
So what were some of the big things that you learned from him in terms of, I guess, the business, and then even like the online stuff, like you were saying, or just like that you could kind of share with people on helping them?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I learned from Chris was to be very ambitious. So he's never the kind of person who, if you say to him like, hey, I wanna go work at Best Buy, he'll be like, why don't you like start your own Best Buy and make it, you know what I mean? So he's always like pushing things to the next level, and in terms of the way he sets goals and the way he runs his business, he's very ambitious, and he has a really strong vision in terms of what he wants to do. So I think that rubbed off on me in terms of anything that I do. I always try and think of how I can make it better, or like set my sights a little bit higher, because if you look at what he's done with his channel and his business, it's really a testament to how hard he works and what his vision is like. And I learned not to set my sights too low, definitely.
Yeah, no, he seems like a cool guy, and we talked before, but I want to get out there and train and hopefully meet him, which would be really cool. So in terms of training with you personally at that time, when did the Olympic lifting come into play, and how'd you get involved with that?
Yeah, so that's actually another story that involves Chris, because I remember we were at the old gym, Strength Camp 2, and we were just sitting there talking after we had trained, and he was kind of saying, like, he was talking about what he wanted Strength Camp to become, and he was saying, like, you kind of want to have something that's your thing. Like, for him, it was athletics, like training for power and explosiveness. For Elliott, it was strongman training. So he was just saying to Shannon and myself, like, you need to find your thing that people know you for. So whether that's endurance, or whether that's weightlifting or strongman or powerlifting, like, you need to associate and get really deep into one particular thing. And at that time, it was funny. I was going in between, like, uh, training for endurance and getting back into distance running, or doing weightlifting, which are completely on the opposite ends of the spectrum. Yeah, so it just so happened at that time that Barbell Shrugged opened their year-long weightlifting program. So they put out videos and gave you a program and all that kind of stuff. So I decided to go that direction just because I didn't want to be the skinny guy at the gym, which I still ended up being. But so I did that, and I haven't looked back since. Yeah, I just have been weightlifting ever since then.
It's funny because I had Alan Thrall on here on Wednesday, and I didn't know that he was a runner too. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys talked about that, but I was like, dude, like, I need to see pictures of this because that's hilarious.
Alan especially, because how much does he weigh now? He's like
Dude, he's got to be around my weight, like 230, around there plus, give or take. But he said he weighed like 170.
Yeah. When I was at the peak of my triathlon capabilities, I was like 160, 165. And I remember reading a 70s Big article, and they said something like, yeah, you don't want to be like one of those little pussy 160-pound triathletes. And I was like, damn it, that's me. And then that's when I decided to start gaining weight. But yeah, it's definitely, they're very different sports for sure.
Yeah, so I think the first time we talked, I don't know if it was recorded or not, but you told me about your weightlifting meet and your singlet. So why don't you tell everybody about that whole experience?
Yeah, so I think one of my strengths is I don't take many things too seriously, which is also one of my greatest weaknesses. But
if you follow him on Instagram and just read his post, yes, you'll get that.
Quickly. But I remember hearing in a video someone saying you should compete as soon as possible. And a lot of people who I talk to now when I'm coaching, it's confusing to me because I'll be like, we need to get you competing. And they'll be like, oh, I'm not ready and all this stuff. But for me, I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do that.
Yeah.
I'd been training for 2 months at that time, and I was not very good at all. Like, I hadn't done really a lot of full snatches or full clean and jerks. It was all power. And so I decided to sign up for this meet, which is the MIA Classic, or Miami Classic, I guess they call it. But it's a big meet. And I signed up, and I was talking to my friend, and then he was like, don't worry, like, you're not going to be the weakest one there, all this stuff. And I was like, okay, good. And then when we went to put down our weights we drove down there and we put down our weights for your opening lifts. Mm-hmm. I was by far like the weakest person there. So that off to a great start there. But anyways, I'm warming up. To my left is Hayden Bowe, who is like the hybrid strength guy down in Miami. He's actually from Ontario as well. And then to my right is this guy wearing like a Cuba singlet. I don't know if he was from Cuba or he was just wearing it, but he seemed very high level, very intense. And then across from me was the guy who owns the Lab Gym in St. Louis, Justin Thacker. Right. And he's won national championships in weightlifting and strong. I think he competed in strongman too, but he's got like a neck. He doesn't have a neck. And he was wearing a full Adidas tracksuit, headphones, veins bulging out in his forehead. He's got a bald head, very intense. And I'm like 2 feet taller than everyone in my weight class, so I was like very out of place. So anyways, they call my name to go on stage. I got my singlet on. I'm ready to go out there. And then Hayden's like, yo, bro. He's like, I think your singlet's on backwards. And I looked down, and I had a wrestling singlet, so it was like the super thin straps on the back. And it looked like I was one of those old school Bulgarian weightlifters with my nipples hanging out and everything. So I just stripped down to my boxers or my sports underwear right in the warm-up room, put on my singlet really quick, run out on stage, and then just smash my opener. So that's how I did my first meet. It was traumatic.
Man, that's a lot to handle. But I mean, if that doesn't fire you up to get out there and smash a lift, I don't know what will.
Yeah, it was very intimidating too because all the Barbell Shrugged guys were there watching. The stage was like raised and it had lights on it. It was in like a theater, so it wasn't like a rinky-dink local meet. It was legit. So yeah, if you're out there and you're thinking that you're not ready to compete, you're ready. Trust me.
Yeah, in my first competition, I remember I didn't have a coach, right? I was literally just like flying by the seat of my pants on that one, and then I didn't know kilos either, and everything in there was kilos. So I'm sitting there with like my calculator, and I just started guessing. Like I didn't even want to know how much weight was in the bar. I'd clean it. I'd be like, all right, that's relatively like in the area.
Yeah.
And I remember I went up to the table, and they were like, all right, what's your opener? And I was like, 315. And they're like looking at me with like wide eyes, and I was like, yeah, like 315. And they're like, they still like they didn't even say anything. They just like stared at me. And I was like, well, like what? And they're like, that'd be like a world record. And I was like, so I'm sitting there, yeah. I was like, I need pounds, you know what I mean? But that was funny. I'll never forget that. So then with the internship, we'll swing back kind of into gear with that. Like, so did you kind of turn into like the weightlifting guy at strength camp? Is that like what you fell into?
Yeah, so there was never like a huge emphasis in the programming on weightlifting, but I ran, I think, 1 or 2 classes a week just on specifically for weightlifting that we got people into. And eventually one guy really got into it and competed, but yeah, that was towards like the tail end of my time down there. So yeah, I was just coaching the regular classes and then usually once or twice a week a weightlifting one. But yeah, in their regular classes, they don't do cleans or snatch or anything like that. So I'd say, though, it did affect my coaching in other ways, definitely, just in terms of like how I was getting people to front squat and back squat and different things like that. But yeah, it was never like a huge weightlifting class down there.
So in terms of like the business aspect of things, like going into it with your mindset, you know, did you have anything that like either changed or was it kind of what you were looking for? Like everything that you learned from them in terms of what you wanted to do with it when you were like going or leaving there, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I would say like I went into it with the idea that like I for sure wanted to start my own gym and I for sure wanted to be a coach. And I would say after that experience, not that I wouldn't want to, but like I'm starting to realize more that my like my mentality and my like how, I don't know what the word is, my attitude is not completely conducive with running a gym all by myself. Just because like for me, I'm more creative in terms of like I'll have an idea and I'll try and execute on it, but I work better if like I can come up with good ideas and someone else can follow through on them. Because I'm kind of like, I'll be like, oh, this is a good idea, and then I'll be like, this is also a good idea, and I'll like try and start 50 different things, which is good if you're in like the head role, but you're trying to start something by yourself, it's kind of difficult. So I just being able to see what it takes to run a gym in terms of managing and all the work that goes into it, which is a tremendous amount of work, and like what you have to deal with, the hours you have to coach, all that kind of stuff. Like it's a lot of work. So for me, I kind of realized that wasn't what I wanted to do. But in terms of the online stuff, it definitely helped me there too, because it made me realize, like for you, like you have your YouTube channel, and you can reach so many more people than you can just in your gym. So it just showed me the reach you can have online and what it takes also to build a business online, which is also a lot of hard work, but it's a little bit different.
Because you were saying earlier that Elliott was in there once a week, and they only had, like you said, like 5 or 10 members or whatever. So was the brunt of strength camp online rather than the gym? Like that?
Yeah. There was like no. Chris had some athletes he was training. We had like 1 or 2 classes a week, like the strength camp classes. But there's 5 to 10 members, and then maybe like 10 athletes. But yeah, their business was essentially online. Yeah. Elliott wasn't training anyone. It was kind of Shannon was the intern like a month or 2 before I got there. He was coaching the strength camp classes. and helping with the athletes. So Chris and Elliott were pretty much all online at that point, I think.
Yeah, which is crazy because it just shows you the power of the internet. I'm trying to, over time, I would like to have a private gym and be able to make the majority of the money online. So it's like I'm not there yet, so the gym is nice in that regards, but it just is, it's cool when a gym has done that. So I would say, like, just for the whole intern experience, what were just, I guess, some of the big things like you left with in general out of the whole thing? Like, do you still keep in touch with those guys? You know, do you have any like future plans to go back there kind of or anything like that?
Yeah, we definitely stay in touch. I would say in terms of the biggest lesson or lessons that I learned, there's a lot. Like I changed a lot in my time down there. I met Julie, who's my wife now. I met some really good friends. Yeah. It was a crazy time, but I think it was very necessary for me in terms of just my growth as a human being and just learning that you're going to get what you put into something. Yeah, that's what you're going to get out of it. So everything you put into whatever venture you're in, whether that's working at a corner store or doing an internship, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. So that was really important to learn for me. And then also just realizing that anything that I want to do is in the realm of possibility. So there's nothing that is too big a goal to shoot at. Just working with Elliott, you learn that really quickly. He's always talking about taking over the world and all that kind of stuff. So when you have your mind expanded like that to the possibilities, you're like, oh, maybe I could do that too. So just expanding my mindset in terms of what is possible changed a lot, and just reaffirming to me that if I want something, I have to put in the work and I have to show up to do it. I can't rely on anyone else.
Did you ever happen to see it? It's like blowing up on Facebook, but Will Smith, he just put that thing out. It's like he's just dropping wisdom bombs. I love Will Smith, but he was pretty much saying how no matter whatever card you're dealt, really, it ultimately comes down to it's your responsibility. Like no matter what.
Yeah.
But I was totally digging what he was saying. So after you had left and now you're back and you're training out of your garage. So, well, for the most part, I know you're training out of it, but we'll get to that at the end. But I had some questions from people on Instagram, and they were saying, like, what is essential for a garage gym that you would say?
Oh, that's a good question. It depends on what your goals are, I would say. Because for me, I just have a squat rack, bumper plates, crappy barbell, and I have a sled and some sandbags. But for me, I just kind of used it for weightlifting. So if you're weightlifting, you just need kind of like a platform, bumper plates, bar. But I would say something I'd really like to have, or what would be essential, would be rings or a pull-up bar. Would be really, really good to have. One of my friends is getting into fitness right now, and his only goal every day is to do 100 push-ups and 50 pull-ups. That's all he has to do every single day. And I think if you have that, if you have like a squat rack, rings, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I don't think you need too much. If you have a dip station, that'd be really good for doing dips. But if you can do push-ups, pull-ups, do some squats, deadlifts, I don't really know what else you need.
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool too seeing you see it now way more common with garage gyms, but honestly, it's like if you know a welder now, like I just got a car deadlift frame for a strongman, and literally if you just give a welder the dimensions, you know what I mean? It literally costs almost nothing for what.
Really?
Yeah, for what any other place would charge you. It's crazy. Like a stupid example, but they have. Did Elliott or have you ever seen anyone do a duck walk strongman event?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So like
with
one of those.
You hold it.
No, well, you hold its weight like on a handle, and you waddle with it.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's brutal, super simple, but like one of those pins on Rogue is like $100-some. You know what I mean? You go to Home Depot, and I'm sure you know, like from Strength Camp and everything, it costs $10-12 to make that. You know, like it's yeah. So I think, just what you said, it's just you can either get it done yourself or with minimal equipment now, and things are relatively available. So piggybacking off of that, you were talking about training. Kind of what are your goals now for training? What are you focusing on? What, are you on a program? You're just coaching yourself? Like I've seen you've been at some other gyms doing some stuff. So what's the deal with Mark Novak 2018?
My training. So I went down to Texas for 3 months to do Fire Academy. So when I was down there, I was running every day, doing a lot of cardio stuff, which was fun. It was a nice change. But as soon as I got back here, and at that time as well, I stopped weightlifting just because I just didn't have enough time. It was school from like 6 till 5, and then you just don't have time for weightlifting. So when I got back here, right away, the guy who was coaching me down in Texas, Chris LaRue, he started coaching me again. And I've just been trying to gain back the weight that I lost in Texas. So I went down to like 180 down there, and now I'm back up to like 200, 205. Which it was actually, I watched one of Alan Thrall's videos on like a full bulking diet because I was researching his videos before the podcast, and I watched that one. I was like, oh, I just try that, and it works really well for anyone out there who's wondering. So now I just want to continue pursuing weightlifting as long as I can. I would say I want to keep competing, and if I get a firefighting job, I'm probably going to have to stop weightlifting a little bit and focus maybe a little bit more on conditioning. But right now I just want to get as strong as I can, snatch as much as I can, clean and jerk as much as I can. But the only problem is here in Canada, there are probably 4 weightlifting meets a year, and that's it.
I'm saying that. Yeah.
It's brutal. I could not believe it. I was looking a couple months ago for a weightlifting meet, and I just couldn't find one.
Is powerlifting way bigger in Canada than weightlifting?
I don't know. I would imagine so.
Yeah, I just feel like there are some big like powerlifting gyms popping up in Canada right now.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of weightlifters come down here.
Yeah, because when I was in the States, I could go online and find like 2 weightlifting events a month in the States.
Anywhere.
And so when I got up here and I was looking for one, I was shocked. So in the back of my mind right now, I'm kind of like, maybe I should start running some weightlifting events up here because no one does it. It's very strange. So yeah, so for my goals, just more weightlifting, get bigger, get stronger, and that's it.
Are you doing? Where are you training now? Are you still in the garage, or are you training somewhere else?
So when it got super cold, I had to give up the garage, and it's called the Rise Center here in Brantford, and it's a basketball academy. So kids from all over Canada, I think, come there, high school kids, and they all play on a team together. So they're like the elite basketball academy in the area. So they have a little gym there that I train at, but whenever I go in there, there's like 7-foot tall kids in there and all kinds of freak athletes. So so luckily they have some bumper plates and floors that you can drop weights on. So I go in there, do my thing, and I also have a membership at another gym, like a commercial gym, where I go to get a pump on and use the steam room. So
is Fortis near you or no?
I've been to the old Fortis maybe 5 times.
Okay.
But the new one's maybe like 40 minutes away. So I actually have a friend in Toronto, Alex Sammy, give him a little shout out here. He's very strong and very handsome. And usually I'd meet up with him and we go to Fortis on the weekends just because my wife Julie would take a dance class and then I would go lift weights instead. So
you were doing dance?
I actually did a dance fitness class one time with her, and it was great. I loved it.
I could see you like it. Hey, I did it too, man. I used to go in college to the Zumba class, and it was the best way to network and meet females. I loved it.
I was the only guy there.
Exactly.
Yeah. So actually, when I was single in Toronto, that's what you would do. You'd go to like a yoga class or like a running club, and you're the only guy there, and it's great.
And then Mark Novak has 20 kids. He doesn't. No, I'm just kidding.
They're out there.
They're out there.
Roaming the streets.
That's funny. So tell us about Fire Academy, because I know you were putting some YouTubes up on that. It looks scary. I mean, I would love to do that. but like some of your videos, I was like, man, that's got to be hot. Yeah, so tell us like about, like you were saying, the training kind of protocol for that, switching gears, some of the crazy things maybe you had done in that academy, and just your experience.
Yeah, so Texas is very different from Canada, especially Fire Academy, which is kind of like they try and make it military-esque. It's obviously not as intense as the military, but I was so excited for Fire Academy that I missed the first day, and I misread the date. I thought it was a Monday, but they started on a Sunday for some reason. I just didn't read the instructions clearly, I guess. And so I show up on Monday, and I got taken into the office with Wade Boggs, who's like a bulldog of a man with a like very thick mustache, glasses, and he just looks like he's going to kill you at all times. So I go in there with him, and I kind of thought it was, not that I thought it was funny, but I was just kind of like, oh, like I missed the first day, like joking around. And they were not playing around at all. Like they just sat there and stared at me for a bit, and they're just like, the one thing I hate, he's like, what did he say? He's like, I hate nothing more than tardiness and absenteeism. And I was just like, oh no. And he's like, did you shave today, son? And I was like, no. He's like, no, sir. I was like, no, sir. They were just ripping me a new butthole, as the saying goes. So that happened the first day. I had to go shave in the bathroom, just like with a razor some other guy gave me, and I just got ripped.
They were hardcore about you being shaved?
Yeah, you have to shave every day. So I'd shaved the day before, so there was like a tiny little bit going on there. But yeah, they called me out for that, and they yelled at me, and they're like, water under the bridge, son, but just know that we don't forget. And I was like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was my first day, but the physical training as a whole was not really hard at all. But when you put all the gear on and you have to go in a super hot building and you have air on, it's very, very difficult. So I did a lot of running for that, but it was really the breathing that was the hardest part. You'd see a lot of people like puking and getting heat stroke and all that kind of stuff and running out of air really quickly, just because it's very, very difficult to control your breathing when you're in pitch black, and like it's just a very stressful environment. So I'm actually writing a program for it right now, and one of the things I included were some breathing protocols you can practice, just to just get more in tune with your breathing, calm it down in moments of stress, and conserve your air, because that's something that I struggled with a little bit at first, but over time I got a little bit better at it. So that was definitely the hardest part.
Yeah. So like what would you guys do for like drills, like you said, like the building and stuff like that? So kind of like what was is that like a test or something you practice often going into?
Yeah, so you do PT every day, physical training every day, and then the last 2 weeks you'll do burn weeks, which are like you're on. So if you look up Texas A&M fire field, you'll see this crazy huge fire field they have. They have a recreation of a ship. They have apartment complexes. They have towers. They have all kinds of different buildings, barn-looking buildings. And essentially, you're with your crew of 4 people, and they just send you into the building, and you have to find and put out fires that they set in the buildings. They kind of have like these big, it looks like a chest of drawers or like a cupboard, and they fill it with hay, and they set it on fire. So the buildings get very, very hot, and it's really dark, oftentimes pitch dark when you're in there, especially if you get put in a basement. And you just go in there, put the fire out, come back out. They'll send you back in to go to get another fire or to rescue a victim or do all these different things. So yeah, it gets very tiring. It's very hot. And that's only for 2 weeks, though. That's like the last 2 weeks you'll burn every day. But those are definitely tough weeks.
That's crazy, man. I've just been put into like stress induced situations, and like you said, like you think you can control yourself or you're breathing, and everything just goes out the window. And then like in that case, if you actually have an oxygen tank, that is scary because you won't be able to breathe for real.
Yeah, some people. One guy had to go home the first day we put on our masks. He freaked out. Like one of the chiefs there accidentally turned off his air and then put the guy's mask on. So the guy tried to breathe. No one came out, so he freaked out. And then the next day he went home. And then other people would you could tell like they'd come out of the building early before their air ran out, or they'd like try and suck down their air really fast to get out. But psychologically, yeah, it definitely does affect you. The worst thing we had to do was go into this maze. It was like a McDonald's play place, but pitch black. Well, not pitch black, but very dusty. Yeah, go with 4 guys into this McDonald's play place tube maze, and that's the only time I felt like I was gonna have a panic attack. But I got through it. But yeah, it's weird because you don't know how you're gonna react to like darkness or confined spaces or any of that kind of stressful stuff.
I remember in Philadelphia they had the Franklin Institute, and they were doing some sort of exhibit, and you had to pretty much crawl through. It was like a pitch black tube with people and find your way out. You know what I mean? And dude, I lost my shit. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna deny it. Like I lost it, and I was probably like, I don't know, anywhere from 8 to 10. I had to stop the whole thing, and they had to like open it up and get me out. But I never had felt that feeling before in my life, and I realized from then I had to get over like being in claustrophobic situations, like working under cars and stuff kind of bugs me out sometimes. Like if I can like feel the car like right there, yeah, I don't know, man.
It's a weird feeling. It consumes your whole body. I just remember we all got jammed in there, and when we weren't moving, that's when I could feel it start to like rise up in me almost. And then as soon as we could start moving again, I felt better just because we were like moving towards the exit. But yeah, when you're in there and you're just kind of like sitting there, it's terrifying. Like I don't like it at all.
Like I can think about it now, and I'm just like, I don't know, man.
Yeah. Actually, one time at the Science Center, they had a recreation of a wolf den, and you could crawl into it. So I crawled into it. I was probably like 19, 20 years old. And then you go into the wolf den. It's cool. And then you come out the other side, and you realize that it was like 5-year-olds in there only. And then me, this 20-year-old guy. So when I popped out the other side, it was all the parents waiting for their little kids. And crawls out of the wolf den. It was not cool.
You come in as a boy and you leave as a man.
They're like, Jimmy, is that you?
Yeah. Jimmy has a beard now. Oh, that's awesome. All right, so I'll ask you just a couple, I guess just like off-topic questions, and then we'll probably just wrap it up. But we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but I'm fascinated with people's like daily routines, and you talked about writing your goals down. Like, do you have any non-negotiables that you do every day that have really helped you with your life in general?
Yeah, the one I'd say, like I'm on and off with a lot of things. Like I'll try and meditate consistently, but that's on and off. I'll try and write every morning. That's on and off too. So if I'm completely honest and truthful in my answer, the one non-negotiable thing I do every day is I have a cold shower every morning. Okay. I don't know how much that affects my life in the grand scheme of things, but I do know that it really wakes me up, makes me feel good in the morning. And it's kind of like that one terrible thing you have to do right away as soon as you get up that steals you for the rest of the day. So there are a lot of things I could say that I do. Like I do inconsistently meditate, which I find really helps, and I do inconsistently write, but cold showers have been like every single day for probably the last 3 years, every day.
And is that always still miserable, or is it not as miserable as the more you do it?
Well, if I had to start again, it would probably be more miserable the first time I did it than now, but it's still pretty bad. Yeah. Okay. It's not good at all.
It does work. I always find when you're done, like when I went to Juji Mufu's place, he put us all in an ice bath.
Oh, yeah.
I was like falling asleep, dude. Like we were just cranking content for hours and hours and hours and just drained. And the last thing I wanted to do was do that ice bath. Like we all, like even Juji was like, I mean, I don't know if we're going to do it, but we did it. And after, man, like, I swear I felt like I was on cocaine. Like, I was like, oh, like, let's keep going. You know what I mean? So I was like, these things work.
Yeah, I need to get the bath. That'd be great. An ice bath.
Yeah.
Nice showers.
Who was it? Tony Robbins has like a hole in the ground.
When I saw that in his documentary.
Yeah.
So I don't really have a vision of what I want my future house to look like, but I do know I want a hole beside it full of ice water to plunge into.
Yeah, that was cool. He just was like, whoop, right in there, man. Freaking ape, dude.
Great.
So I got this question from Tim Ferriss, but like when he asked it to his people, and it was it's the $100 or less question. It's like if you could tell people to buy something or invest in something for $100 or less that has impacted your life, what would you tell them to buy?
Oh, well, I guess there's so many different books out there that have impacted my life that are under $100, but
yeah, I mean, that's a good one.
Something physical. I'd say in terms of books, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl definitely had a huge impact on me. I've read that a number of times, and it's just kind of talking about the fact that humans have a choice in everything. So there's stimulus, there's space, and then you can make a choice. So he was in a concentration camp during the Holocaust, so he kind of saw people at their lowest, and he saw what people did to survive and what people were doing to die, basically, in those situations and give up. So he gives some really, really good insight into basically like the fundamentals of human behavior and what gets people up out of bed in the morning and how to just live a good life. So Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl is really good. In terms of something else, like a purchase, I don't know, like maybe get a pull-up bar or something.
Yeah, that's cool.
Growing up, I had one in my kitchen, and every time we were in there, me and my brothers would just do pull-ups to the point where my one brother was doing over 30 strict chin-ups, and that's all he did for training. Like, he just would do pull-ups. So it's a good training tool to have in your house, and you can use it all the time, and it's hard to overtrain on it. And yeah, Man's Search for Meaning and a pull-up bar.
That's awesome. No, that's a good answer, man. It's the first time I ever asked it, so I like it. I like the answer. Okay, just some ending questions is snatch or clean and jerk?
Snatch.
All right, snatch. Okay.
Snatch.
Favorite band or bands or music you like?
Favorite band? Oh, there's so many. If I'm going with like 16-year-old Mark, definitely Blink-182. Still strikes a chord even to this day. I don't know, like the teenage angst is definitely very strong with them, and they have lots of funny songs. So Blink-182 is really good. Who else? Eddie Vedder is another guy.
That's good, yeah.
I can really dig. It was funny, we were in yoga the other day, my wife and I, and the yogi, what do you call her? The yoga instructor, yoga lady. She played an Eddie Vedder song at the end. And at the end of the class, we were just talking about how much we didn't like the class, my wife and I, just because we have a very positive relationship like that, building other people up. And one of the things, it just wasn't a very good class. I didn't like it. But my wife was like, yeah, and the song at the end sucked. Like, what was that? I was like, that was a great song. It was an Eddie Vedder song. But I'd say, yeah, Eddie Vedder definitely is up there.
If it wasn't strength training or firefighting, what would you want to get into?
What would I want to get into? Definitely, I would love to do some type of acting or like stand-up comedy or something like that. I just love performing and being the center of attention just because I'm a dick like that.
You're a narcissist.
Just a huge narcissist. So I think performing, yeah, I would love to do something like that.
Cool. I asked Alan this, and he couldn't really answer right away, but what's a big pet peeve you have?
Alan Thrall. Okay.
He's a cool dude. A lot different than I actually thought he was going to be on recording versus like his YouTube's instructional. Like, he's so like Alan Thrall, and then when you get him in person, he's like a cool ass dude, you know?
Very cool. Yeah, I had a great time talking to him. Definitely. Pet peeve. not putting your cart back at the grocery store.
Ooh.
Biggest pet peeve. Yeah. I don't know why. It just bothers me when people leave a cart out in the open. Don't like it.
That's annoying. That's when you just run people over.
Oh, yeah. All the time.
What is something that people probably don't know about you?
Oh, like people who've only seen me on YouTube?
Yeah.
I don't know. What's a strange fact about me? I used to be very afraid of cats. I used to hate cats.
Dude, I'm afraid of cats, man.
I got over it though. And it happened later in life. It happened when I was maybe like in my 20s, mid 20s. I got over it. But yeah, I used to be afraid, terrified of cats.
How old are you?
28 or 29. I turned 29.
Right.
Yeah, because they lay on their back.
You're like in my mid 20s. Like I was like, what? Is this dude like 30 something? Like, oh.
I'm in my late 20s now. My late 20s. So yeah, they'll lay on their back and you go to scratch or give them a little belly rub and then they attack you and they have really sharp teeth and I feel like they bite you and they don't let go.
Yeah.
And they dig in there. So yeah, I was terrified of cats for a long time. I don't know what else I don't really do much. Just train.
That's good. I mean, hey man, listen, I'm cool with it. Do you drink alcohol?
That's another interesting question. When I was at strength camp, I was just getting way too rowdy, like just doing stupid things like pushing people into pools and like falling in bushes and stuff like that. So I was like, Mark, you're 26 or 27 years old. You need to calm down. So I decided to do no drink November, and I started actually in October. And then there's a Halloween party, which was very difficult not to drink at. And then I got past that initial tough party not to drink at in the first month, and I was like, I feel really good. And then I didn't drink for that entire year. And since then, I'll maybe have like one drink every 2 or 3 months.
All right.
But yeah, it's kind of stopped since then. It's crazy.
All right, last one we'll do, and then we'll wrap this up. But it's favorite movie that pops in your head right now.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Ooh, that's a good one, man. I love that one.
Yeah, I was actually thinking of Truman Show in my head, but I said
that's
Ferris.
really good though too.
Yeah, but yeah, I really like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Truman Show though is one of the best.
Did you see Jim and Andy documentary Netflix?
I did, yeah. Very weird. Like I can't imagine being there for that duration of time when they were filming the movie. It just seems like it was like they were on another planet with Jim.
Oh yeah. But what's crazy too is he talked about, like, I don't know if it was in that documentary, but I kind of like dug deep into after watching that, is every single movie he's made or been in is a direct reflection and points of his life, like the theme of the movie. But like,
yeah, I think they talked about it in that documentary.
Yeah, but I was kind of like, man, that's nuts.
Yeah, really, really crazy how deep he goes. He's actually from, I think he's from Hamilton.
Yeah, he's a Canadian.
Yeah, which is like 20 minutes from here. So
wow,
very close.
You gotta become a comedian now.
Live on
the gym legacy.
Oh.
All right, man. So we'll wrap it up, but I just want to say thank you so much for hopping on this call. And everybody needs to go check out your YouTube channel. All right, you post some awesome content, or just watch any of the stuff you've put up in the past through Strength Camp. You've influenced me and helped me out, and I'm just grateful that we get to do these cool conversations and just talk. And you're my Canadian friend, man. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any plugs you want to throw out there for, like, if you're doing anything that people could get involved with you with, or not really?
Probably the next thing I'll be doing, which I'm pretty close to finishing up, is a program for people who are interested in going to fire academy or police academy or anything like that. It's just like a 12-week training program, nutrition guide, and like some mindset stuff I put in there that really, really helped me when I was down at fire academy. So you can find that on my website probably in the next week or so.
Right on. There you go. So check that out, guys. All right, Mark, I'm going to stop this recording, but don't hang up on me yet.
Yep, that's the most awkward part of doing these.
Yeah.
You say, and see you later, and then you hang up, and you're like, but don't hang up. Don't hang up.